Every morning, you sit down at your desk and open the email first. Be honest. Maybe you end your days exhausted, but can't name one thing you actually finished. Maybe your calendar is full, your inbox is empty, and your career is standing completely still. Or maybe someone who works half your hours just got the promotion you wanted. You tell yourself it's temporary. You tell yourself, next quarter will be different, once the backlog clears, once the big project ships, once things finally calm down. They never calm down. The inbox refills the second you close it, the calendar fills the second you free it, and somewhere in the middle of all that motion, a year disappears, and then another, and you still can't point to what any of it built. Here's the truth. Being busy is not the same as being valuable. And nobody tells you the difference until it's too late, until the promotion goes to someone else, until the people who love you start calling you the leftover version of yourself. His name was David. He worked 10 hours a day and was falling behind, until a woman who left the office at 4:30 every afternoon showed him why 2 hours can beat 10. What she taught him wasn't a productivity hack. It was a complete rewiring of what work actually means. Stay with me until the end, because by the end of this story, you'll know exactly which one you are, busy or valuable, and exactly what to do about it. David Cole was 31, a marketing analyst, and the busiest man on his floor. First to log on, last to leave. 10-hour days. He answered every ping within 90 seconds. He was proud of that. It hadn't always felt like a trap. 3 years earlier, that speed had gotten him noticed. His first manager called him the guy who never drops the ball, and David had built his entire identity on top of that sentence. Every fast reply was proof he belonged. Every all-nighter was evidence he cared more than everyone else in the room. Nobody had ever told him that a fast reply and a good answer are not the same thing. He measured everything for a living: churn rates, conversion funnels, campaign lift down to the decimal point, everything except his own attention. A typical Tuesday looked like this: open a campaign report, get pulled into a Slack thread about a typo, half finish a reply, get pulled into a stand-up that ran long, come back to the report with no memory of the number he was checking, start over. Multiply that by 9 more hours. Multiply that by 3 years. He called it multitasking. It was really just one long, expensive form of forgetting. His fiancée, Sarah, had a phrase for what came home each night: the leftover David. Dinner with his eyes on his phone. A postponed wedding date after the promotion. Even his best friend's bachelor party 6 months earlier had ended with David in the parking lot on a client call while everyone else went back inside without him. He told himself it was just this season. He had been telling himself that for 2 years. Then, on a grey Thursday, the department gathered in the glass conference room for what everyone assumed was a routine update, and the senior analyst role went to Priya. A colleague who worked 8 hours to his 10, took real lunches, and left at 4 to get her kids. David clapped along with everyone else, the sound strangely distant in his own ears, like he was hearing it through water. He sat in the applause with his ears ringing. David asked himself, I answer emails at midnight. She doesn't even have Slack on her phone. How? He replayed the last 3 years on the drive home, the missed dinners, the 90-second replies, the Saturdays he'd told Sarah were just this once, and none of it added up to anything he could point to and say, I built that. That night, Sarah found him at the kitchen table, with his laptop open, and quietly asked the question that broke him. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Sarah asked, David, 10 hours a day, for 3 years, where did they go? He opened his mouth to answer with a project name, a client, a launch, something, anything, and nothing came. He genuinely could not name what the hours had built. Sarah asked, Not the 10 hours, just one thing you're proud of, that took you more than a day to build. Because I can't think of one either, David, and I've been watching. That landed harder than the promotion had. He sat there in the dim kitchen light with a woman he loved, asking him to produce evidence of 3 years of his own life, and coming up empty. The next morning, David caught Priya by the coffee station and asked her, half joking and half desperate, how she did it, how she left at 4 and still ran circles around him. Priya just shrugged. "I don't have a secret," she said. "I have a VP who sat me down 2 years ago and made me a deal." She nodded toward the glass office at the end of the row. "Ask her. If she tells you, it'll change your whole career. It changed mine." Margaret Hayes was the VP who had promoted Priya. 58 years old, 26 years at the company, and famously out the door at 4:30 every single day. Nobody ever saw her rushed. David asked for 15 minutes. She gave him a walk to the parking lot. Margaret asked, "You want to know why Priya got the role? Fine. First, answer this. After someone interrupts you, how long until your brain is fully back on the task?" David asked, "A minute? 2?" Margaret asked, 23 minutes. That's the research. Now, how often are you interrupted? David said, "Every few minutes, but that's the job." Margaret said, "Then do the math, analyst. If refocusing takes 23 minutes and you're pinged every 11, your real focus time is 0. 10 hours of work, 0 hours of thinking. You're not working, David, you're responding. The average office worker gets about 24 minutes of uninterrupted focus a day. That's 100 hours a year. Priya protects 2 hours every morning, 500 hours a year. She does 5 years of your real work every year. And you call her lazy for leaving at 4. David stopped walking. Somewhere behind them, the building's automatic doors hissed open and shut, swallowing another rushing co-worker, and for the first time in 3 years, the sound didn't make him feel guilty for standing still. David asked, "Then why does everyone act like the person still at their desk at 7 is the one doing the real work?" Margaret asked, "Because watching someone type looks like effort. Nobody can see thinking. So companies reward the visible thing, the seat filled, the light on, the instant reply, and they quietly starve the invisible thing that actually built every product you've ever shipped. You've been optimizing for the wrong metric your entire career, and it isn't your fault. Nobody ever taught you the real one." In the parking lot, Margaret opened her notebook to a page she'd written 20 years ago, after her own burnout put her in a hospital bed at 38. She called it the 2-hour vault. Margaret said, "I was you, David. Worse, actually, I answered email in the delivery room when my son was born, and I told myself it was dedication. Then one Tuesday, my heart rate hit 190 at my desk, and I woke up in a hospital bed with a doctor telling me my body had simply refused to keep running the way I was running it. 20 years ago, in that bed, I wrote 3 rules. I have broken every other habit I've ever had. I have never once broken these." Margaret said, "Rule 1, the vault. 2 hours, every morning, 8 to 10. Door closed, phone in your bag, one task, the hardest one. The vault opens for no one. An arrow only flies if you stop throwing 10 at once. Rule 2, batch the shallow. Email and messages twice a day, 11 and 4. In batches, they take 40 minutes total. Scattered, they take your life." David asked, "Twice a day, people will think I'm ignoring them. My manager pings me on a Tuesday and doesn't hear back until 11. That looks like I'm not doing my job." Margaret said, "It looks that way for about 2 weeks. Then it looks like something else. It looks like someone whose answers are actually worth waiting for. I made that trade 20 years ago. I have never once regretted it." Rule 3, the shutdown. At 6, you write tomorrow's 1-volt task, close the laptop, and say, out loud, "Done for today." A brain that never closes, never truly opens. Then the challenge. Margaret said, "Quarterly reviews are in 60 days. Give me 60 days of vault mornings. If you break the vault more than twice, don't ask me about promotions again. Ask me about time management, because that's all you'll ever do." Week 1 was withdrawal. His hand reached for the phone that wasn't there. 19 times the first morning. He tallied it in the margin. Colleagues panicked when he didn't answer for 2 hours. Someone left a sticky note on his monitor that just said, "Someone else told their desk mate David, must be interviewing somewhere else." The world, it turned out, survived without him for 2 hours at a time, a fact that stung more than it should have. Day 12, a quick call invaded the vault, and the whole morning shattered around it. That evening, he almost quit the experiment. Instead, he wrote one line in the notebook: "1 break is a crack, 2 is a door." He never let it happen again. Day 24, something he hadn't felt since college. The vault ended, and he looked up surprised. 2 hours had passed like 20 minutes. Deep work has a taste, and he'd finally remembered it. He sat there for a moment, just breathing, half expecting the feeling to be a fluke, and then it happened again the next morning, and the one after that, proof, page by page, that the vault wasn't a trick. It was a muscle, and it was finally getting stronger. Day 38 brought the harder test. A client emergency lit up the office at 8:40, everyone scrambling, his manager standing at the glass door of the vault with a face that said, "This can't wait." Every instinct in David's body, 3 years of trained instinct, screamed at him to open the door. He thought about Margaret's hospital bed. He thought about the word 0. He held the door closed for 11 more minutes, finished the one paragraph he was mid-sentence on, and then walked out and solved the client problem in 14 focused minutes flat. Faster, he realized, than he would have solved it interrupted, scattered, and half-present. That was the day the vault stopped feeling like a sacrifice and started feeling like a weapon. By day 45, something had quietly shifted around him too. Colleagues stopped leaving sticky notes on his monitor. His manager started routing the hard problems to him instead of the fast ones, because David's answers, arriving slower, were suddenly the ones nobody had to double-check. Nobody called it deep work out loud. They just started saying, "Ask David. He'll actually think about it." In 60 days of vault mornings, David built what 3 years of busy never had. A full churn prediction model the company had talked about for 2 years and never started. On day 55, 5 days before review season, he presented it. Margaret sat in the back, saying nothing, smiling slightly. Nobody in that room asked why he'd been unreachable most mornings for 2 months. The model answered that question by itself. He got the next senior role, with a raise. But the real result left the office at 5:30 with him. They set the date that Friday, over the same small candlelit table where he used to check his phone between courses. This time his phone stayed in the car. Sarah got the whole David back, not the leftover one. She noticed it before he said a word, the way he actually looked at her across the table instead of past her, the way the conversation had room to breathe instead of racing to the next thing. Margaret, at the parking lot, day 60, said, "You know what I gave you, not a system." David asked, "Then what?" Margaret said, "Permission to stop performing work and start doing it." Here's the truth David learned. Your career isn't built in your inbox. It's built in the hours nobody can interrupt. He didn't get faster. He didn't start answering messages in 60 seconds instead of 90. If anything, he got slower to respond, slower to react, slower to say yes to every meeting invite that landed in his calendar. What he got instead was 2 hours a day that nobody else owned, and it turned out 2 owned hours were worth more than 10 borrowed ones. 3 rules. 1. The vault. 2. Protected hours every morning. Hardest task first. Phone in another room. 2. Batch the shallow. Messages twice a day, not 200 times. 3. The shutdown ritual. Name tomorrow's one task, close the laptop, say done. None of it requires a new tool, a new job, or a new boss. It requires a closed door and the willingness to be unreachable for 2 hours out of 24, and the discipline to actually use them on the one thing that matters, instead of the 10 things that are merely urgent. David didn't have a better degree than you. He didn't get a lucky break, or a generous boss, or an easy quarter. He had the same 40-hour week everyone else has, and he spent 2 hours of it differently, on purpose, every single day, for 60 days in a row. That's the whole secret. Not talent, not luck. Repetition of one small, unglamorous, protected choice, long enough for it to compound. Remember the math. 24 scattered minutes a day is 100 hours a year. 2 protected hours is 500. Same job. 5 times the life. That gap doesn't close itself. Somebody has to close it. And it has to be you, because nobody is ever going to protect your attention for you. Not your manager, not your calendar, not the notification that just lit up your pocket while you read this sentence. Your challenge: tomorrow morning, before the email, give 1 hour to your hardest task. Just one. Close the door, put the phone in another room, and protect it like David protected his too. Then comment below and finish this sentence. My Vault Hour builds. I read every answer. If someone you know wears busy like a medal, the one who answers at midnight, the one who's always in a meeting, the one who can't tell you what they built last year, send them this. They don't need more hours. They need 2 protected ones. Busy is easy. Deep is rare. Be rare.